This channel is supported by Truefire. Truefire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses.
I think for years and years, my favourite guitar has been this particular K-line Springfield. And if you were to ask me, what of the, classic types of guitar do you feel most comfortable playing? My answer, I think, would have been Strat. And I'm not sure that the answer is Strat anymore. I've kind of gone on a bit of a Tele arc. A Tele for me has often been the thing that I've picked up and chosen to play live. And yeah, I don't know, I just want to discuss in this video why I think in some ways like the Telecaster just can be a bit more versatile, can be the guitar that maybe you pick up more often, maybe the guitar that's more reliable for gigging, the simpler guitar in some ways, and also, yeah, maybe it's just, for me, a better design. I don't know, let's get into it. One thing obviously to discuss with the Strat design is the sheer comfort of it. So obviously a Tele, it's just a slab, and you don't have the body contours and stuff like that, which it does make a Strat really comfortable to play at home and live as well, actually, to be fair. There are some other things going on with the Strat that I think are in some ways not as useful for live playing. So one of the things, I had a subscriber ask me actually on eBay why I don't bend that much, and I did say, like, if you saw me playing live, I do bend a little more. The thing that happens with the Strat, and I don't know if any of you guys can relate to this, is that bending is a little bit unpredictable. Unless you know the guitar really well, and then you start to get to know how the trem is going to react to your bending. But the thing that happens kind of with the Strat is that you need to go to your target point, and then the trem sort of compensates. So you can quite easily overbend, and quite easily, you know, just bending accuracy is a little bit out of the window. The other thing that I've found is that at home I use these in-between positions a lot, or a fair amount, but when I'm playing live I'm either in neck or in bridge, and both of those positions, I think maybe I prefer the neck pickup of a Strat, but the bridge pickup of a Tele I actually prefer in terms of tone, I think. Now, I don't know if you checked out much of the intro, but what I do notice playing the Strat is that this has a much more slinky feel to it, which at home, again, really suits me quite well. It's a more delicate feeling instrument, I would say, and particularly with those in-between positions there, which are a bit more on the subtle side. For home it's really good stuff, but live, those in-between positions, I don't really tend to use them much. I find that with more gain and stuff like that, they get a little bit lost, maybe. Whereas the things that I really like about Tele is that the bending is a bit more predictable, because we've got a fixed bridge. We also have a volume and tone in a position that is less interfering with technique. You know, I'm not as likely to hit anything there. But also that kind of move where you're bending and hitting a note that's not bent, because there's no trem, you've got more stability there. The other thing that I find going on with the Tele is that there's definitely a stiffer feel to it. These are both strung with the Dario 10s. And it's still that single coil sort of spanky tone that you have with the Strat, but it's a bit more direct, a bit more bold, and there's less spring to it. It's like a bit more like you get a little bit more out versus what you put in. it sort of feels like with a Strat that you impart some energy to it and it sort of springs a bit. Maybe this is to do with the trem and the springs actually in there, like there's a bit of give to the notes, whereas the Tele is which actually makes it, to me, maybe a little bit more of a maybe an instrument where I can be a bit more sensitive, just because I know that what I put in this doesn't have, these are wired in like humbucker mode at the moment, which is something I need to change. But I'm starting to think that maybe the Tele is in fact the guitar that I should be, you know, pouring a bit more energy into, because I don't know if you guys have had some sort of like midlife crisis in this sort of way too, but to me, you know, a Tele, the Telecasters Tele that I've had is the guitar that I've actually had the longest out of all of my guitars, and remains a guitar that I take to gigs as a backup. I'm going to gig this one tonight for the first time, the Nacho. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Have you switched to being more of a Tele focused player as you've gotten older or anything like that? Moved from a Strat to a Tele? Let me know your story if you've got one. Cheers for stopping by. Is the Tele a better instrument? I think in some ways, maybe.